A decision made. Welcome into the Thursday, January 16th, 2025 edition of the Lunch Break. Chris Schubert here with you. We've got you for the next 2 hours here. KDUS AM 1060 and always on the KDUS AM 1060 app. Welcome in. Like I mentioned, a decision finally made. We know the direction that the Phoenix Suns are going to take. That, the focus of our daily special.
Time for our top story of the day. It's the Daily Special.
The big move. The small tweak or nothing at all. Which path would the Phoenix Suns take? Well, yesterday we got our answer. As they sent Josh Okogie and 3 second-round picks to Charlotte and got center Nick Richards and a second-round pick in return. This was the long-standing rumor surrounding the Phoenix Suns and their trade pursuits. The Jimmy Butler news fading into the background and into the foreground. The big man, Nick Richards, has been a topic, the focus of the Suns' trade pursuits, trying to get Charlotte to maybe take on Jusuf Nurkic's contract. That not happening. It is Josh Okogie and 3 second-round picks for Nick Richards and a second-round draft pick in return. So the Suns made their choice yesterday. They made their decision very, very clear. They are going to go for the minor tweak. They are going to try to improve on the margins, a la the Arizona Cardinals at the NFL trade deadline, looking at where they're at, maybe saying, hey, we're a little bit ahead of a schedule. We need some pass rush help. We're going to get a veteran in Baron Browning. Now, that was a very on-the-margins move. That was not a big splash. That was not diving into your draft capital pool there if you're Monty Ossenfort. That was a on-the-margins move to get somebody in the building to help at that position. It is exactly what the Suns did yesterday by adding Nick Richards. They needed somebody to take over the starting center role. And we're going to break down exactly what this rotation is going to look like here and exactly what the Suns are getting in Nick Richards here over the course of the next 2 hours. But the Suns decided they needed an upgrade at center. That was where they thought, at least with their roster the way it currently is, was an area where they could improve. And they identified Nick Richards as the improvement. The Suns rank last in points from their starting center. They get Richards, who this year is averaging 8.9 points per game and 7.5 rebounds per game in the 21 games that he has played with the Hornets. But diving a little deeper, he's made 9 starts this season. In those starts, he averages 11.3 points, 10.2 rebounds, and 1.7 blocks per game in those 9 starts. 65% from the field over the last 4 seasons. That is the 5th best in the NBA, according to ESPN research. This is the one move that the Suns had left in their arsenal. They're limited in what they're able to do. You know it. You've heard me talk about it. Second apron team, way too many limitations on what you're able to do draft-wise. You can't aggregate salaries. You have limited draft capital as it is to deal with. And so it's these types of moves that were there, that were available for the Phoenix Suns. Now, I bet you they tried their hardest to get Jusuf Nurkic's contract involved into this trade. It's very clear what they feel about Jusuf Nurkic. But yesterday, the Suns made a declarative statement. They decided what path they wanted to pick. They decided that they want to see this through. They're not going to see this through with another big splash that leaves them no escape pod, or at least it doesn't feel that way right now. They are going to make the minor tweak. They are going to make the necessary upgrade. They are going to address something that has been a sore spot, multiple sore spots. Production from the center position, rebounding, athleticism, size, all of that an issue for the Suns at the center spot this season. They looked at that as the area where they could make an improvement, and they identified a 27-year-old as their improvement. And let's face it, they gave up basically everything they have. Josh Okogie hadn't been playing the last couple of games. That should have been the first warning sign that something was afoot. And they traded 3 second-round picks. They have 1 second-round pick and a 2031 unprotected first. That's it in terms of draft assets. So this is the move. This is what the Phoenix Suns have decided to present as their final project. We're going to roll with this roster. This is the tweak that we have made. Let's see this through. Let's at least get through another season with this core 3, this big 3, and let them try to get into the postseason. That's what they decided yesterday. They decided on the small tweak. They decided on the improvement on the margin, the improvement on the fringe. And by trading away Josh Okogie and by trading away 3 second-round picks, basically locked in this team for the rest of the way. And I can't blame them for picking that path. I told you the one path I couldn't sign on board with was the Jimmy Butler path. I couldn't sign on board with trading that 2031 unprotected, whether it was to get somebody to take on Bradley Beal's contract or if it was to send to Miami to get Jimmy Butler. I could not get on board with that. From what I've seen from this team so far, it would have been professional malpractice, organizational malpractice to forego that draft pick to try to make this work with another big move. This, what they did yesterday, I can get on board with. I can get on board with giving these guys the opportunity and the space to say, hey, you're going to get the rest of this season. But that's it. You need a big man? You need somebody to rebound for you? You need some more size, athleticism down low? Okay. We will check that box for you. We will get you that player, coach. We will get you that member of your rotation. You got to make it work the rest of the way because I'm not guaranteeing what next season will look like. I'm not guaranteeing that we allow you to run it back again next season. Listen, they're out of draft picks. They're out of cap space. Not a lot that they can really do. There's always something to be done, but they're very limited in what they can do. And so this was their move yesterday. This is what they are presenting to you, the Suns fan, to say, hey, stay with us for the remainder of the season. So I'd love to know your thoughts on this move. I would love to know if you agree with this approach. Is this what you wanted to see from the Phoenix Suns? Listen, Nick Richards probably was not a household name 2 weeks ago. He's become a household name in the last 2 weeks because of how frequently we've talked about him as a potential trade target for the Phoenix Suns. And it feels like they've been working on this for a little bit now. So you know the phone number, 480-864-1060. That's one way for you to join the conversation. You got the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube live stream, the video version of the show. You can also hop in the comments there as well. I want to hear from you today. I want to hear your thoughts on this move. Is this what you wanted to see the Suns do? Is this enough for you? Are you content with seeing this season through? Because you know where I stand. I'm out on this team. I've been out since the middle of December. I've told you that I didn't think that we were going to see anything differently this year in the postseason than we did last year in the postseason. But the Phoenix Suns have told you, they've sent the message loud and clear. We are going to give this big three, this roster, this coach, a little bit of help. We're going to give them the one thing that everybody agrees that they need. And somebody, listen, in his 9 starts this season, he's been a double-double. That's nice production from the center position in terms of points. They sorely need the rebounding. I don't think anyone needs to hear me go on my rant from yesterday about getting out-rebounded the way that they did, giving away the extra possessions on offense the way that they did. A guy like Nick Richards helps in that regard. 7.5 rebounds per game on the season, but when starting, that goes up to 10, basically a double digit, basically a double-double. That's what you're getting from Nick Richards. And we'll talk about what this looks like. We'll talk about what the rotation will be. We'll talk about who should start, who should come off the bench, all of that here today on the show. Don't you worry. We've got you covered from all the angles on this. But the Suns yesterday made a declarative statement. We are not giving up. This season is not over. I know we're 19-20. I know we're out of the playoff picture right now, but we are not waving the white flag. We are not admitting defeat just yet. This is not the big move. It's not the big splash that everybody's been talking about for the last, what feels like a month or so. This is a on-the-margin move to address a need that this team had. And if it doesn't work, you hope that Nick Richards can be somebody for you next season. You hope that the athleticism, the rebounding, because listen, let's face it, you and I both know this. The Suns have more problems than just the production out of the center position. They have more issues than just getting out-rebounded. Their defense is a problem. Their inconsistencies on offense are a problem. What you get from Bradley Beal on a given night is a problem. Injuries have been a problem. The list goes on and on. This team doesn't look like a team. Looks like just a bunch of individuals playing together. We, chapter and verse, have gone through the litany of issues that plague the Phoenix Suns. But the one that was addressable, at least yesterday, was the production out of the center spot. And so they did that. They said, we are going to give this group a chance. And what I love about this move is it doesn't lock them into a direction. it gives them the chance to see it through this season. But if they decide at the end of the year, we gave you last year, we gave you this year, we changed coaches, we added new players, we brought in a veteran point guard, we tried every different thing with this combination of a big three to make this work, and it didn't. You still have the escape pod. Trading for Jimmy Butler yesterday, or if they potentially attempt to do that over the coming weeks, that's taking the escape pod off the table. This move yesterday keeps the escape pod on the table. If they want to reset at the end of this season, they still have those options in front of them. They still have the ability to do that. And so this is sort of being on the fence, straddling the line. They didn't continue to go further all in, but they also didn't admit defeat yesterday. They made the one move that everybody thought, hey, listen, if you're going to give this a chance, if you're going to see this through the remainder of the season, these are the types of moves that you have to make. And you may think it was a lot. You may think Josh Okogie and 3 second-round picks is basically utilizing all the ammunition you have. And maybe you don't think that was the right use of assets yesterday, but the Suns decided this is our best foot forward. This is the best way that we can help this team while not sacrificing the long-term future. So I want to hear from you today, 480-864-1060, also on the KDUS AM YouTube channel as well. Your thoughts on the Nick Richards move, what it means for this team, what you're expecting from this team, just your thoughts all across the board on what the Suns did yesterday. But coming up on the other side, there's Nick Richards, there's Mason Plumlee, and there's Oso. So what do we do with Jusuf Nurkic? That's next on the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Make sure you download the KDUS AM 1060 app. You can take the station with you on the go. Wherever you are, KDUS AM 1060 can be right there with you. Just download the KDUS AM 1060 app today. Make sure you register. You're signed up. Opportunity to win some prizes over there as well for listening on the app. So make sure you have the KDUS AM 1060 app downloaded to your smartphone today. Okay, we have a little bit of a roster problem on our hands. Good move from the Phoenix Suns, acquiring Nick Richards yesterday from the Charlotte Hornets. This is what this team needed. They needed a rebounder. They got out-rebounded 54-37 the other night, 20-6 on the offensive glass. I saw a stat somewhere that 3 times this season, the Suns have allowed a team to have 20 offensive rebounds against them. Those are just extra possessions you are giving away. And let's face it, this team went from having a defensive-minded coach to an offensive-minded coach. You can't give away extra possessions when you are already skewing away from being a defense-first team. You can't give away extra possessions. It's how Trae Young drops 43 on you. And so rebounding is a huge part of that. And you saw a lot of Nick Richards recently because the last 2 games he's played in for the Hornets before becoming a Sun were the 2 games that the Suns played against the Hornets. In the win, the second night of the back-to-back for the Phoenix Suns after beating Philly on that Monday, the first game since Bradley Beal and Jusuf Nurkic were moved to the bench, Richards, 15 points, 12 rebounds, 3 blocks. You'll take that every single night. And then in the loss for the Hornets the other night, last Sunday, 4 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 steals in 18 minutes in that loss. So you're getting a guy that when he starts, averages a double-double, but worst case scenario, averaging about 9 and 8. You'll take that. They need athleticism. They need size. They need somebody that can take over that center position. And so they've got now 4 centers on their roster. You don't need a degree in the NBA. You don't need to have played the NBA or basketball at a high level or have coached in the NBA or have been a scout. You don't need an advanced degree to know you're not carrying 4 centers. 4 centers are not seeing the floor for your basketball team. So somebody's going to be the odd man out, and you and I both know who it is. You and I both know who the odd man out is. It's the guy that was benched a little over a week ago. It was the guy that before he got the flu was completely removed from the rotation entirely. Didn't warrant a single minute in the eyes of Coach Budenholzer. It's the guy that's been sent to Mars. It's Jusuf Nurkic. He's played his last game for the Phoenix Suns. It's it. It's over. Now, what they do, that's a hefty contract. It's clear they're not getting any suitors on that contract, not getting any biters, and you can't blame them. I mean, you've torpedoed his value. You benched him, and then you took him completely out of the rotation. What team is then going to look at that and say, sign up for that and that contract, thank you very much? You're not going to get many suitors. And so what do you do with Jusuf Nurkic? Do you waive and stretch him? Do you maybe find somebody that's willing to take on the contract? And the reason that it's so difficult for somebody to take on that contract is it's not an expiring deal. Teams love expiring deals. They don't love deals that have extra years added onto them, extra commitment for them. Jusuf Nurkic's contract, not an expiring deal. A player that in the eyes of this organization, not good enough to draw into the starting lineup for a team that's out of the playoff picture right now, that is below 500, trying to find it. Jusuf Nurkic, not good enough to draw into that team, to that lineup. That's what you've said over the last week. Take away that he's been out with the flu. Just look at move to the bench, and then a couple games into that experiment, removed from the lineup entirely. And now he's not even with the team because of the flu. So you're not carrying 4 centers. Jusuf Nurkic is the odd man out. I just don't know how you solve that problem. Now, when he gets up to speed, Nick Richards is going to be the starting center of this basketball team. I think we're all good watching Mason Plumlee be the starting center and play those type of minutes. I think we're all good, right? Also, a young player in this league not ready to carry on the workload of starters' minutes at that position. So Nick Richards, once he's up to speed, and so this is going to look a little different for the first couple of games here, Nick Richards is going to be the starting center of this basketball team. And then you're going to have Mason and Oso come off the bench. Those 2 guys are going to be in the rotation. And that's where Mason Plumlee should be. That's where Oso should be at this point in his development. Mason, 34 years old, veteran center, can't play those types of minutes, is best suited for a role player, bench player spot on this team. Oso, a young player. This is a player development, a long-term play here. Him being the third man in that position is a good thing for his long-term development. And so that's where this is going to settle at some point. It is going to settle Nick Richards Mason Plumlee, Oso. That's your depth chart in that order. But you've got Jusuf Nurkic just hanging out over here on the sidelines. And no matter what happens, if he gets back from the flu, I'm not sure if there's any reason to bring him back to the team. He's basically probably just going to stay away at this point until they solve this roster problem. So Jusuf Nurkic has played his last game for the Phoenix Suns, at least in my mind. And it has been a slow slide downward for Jusuf Nurkic, and I don't think it's all his fault. I told you the other night they could have used Jusuf Nurkic on the floor. Despite for all of his flaws, they could have used his rebounding. Guy averages nearly 10 rebounds a game. They just went out and acquired a guy that basically does that. Why? Because that's what they need. But they need a little more athleticism. They need a little more size. And so that's why they went for Nick Richards. And so there you go. That's what your center position is going to look like. And it is going to look more like what it is supposed to look like to put these guys in the best position. Mason Plumlee is in a better spot coming off the bench. Oso is in a better spot coming off the bench in small spurts. That is the best way to utilize your center group. And right now, because you sent Jusuf Nurkic to Mars and then he got the flu, you have been operating not in the proper way at that position. Mason Plumlee is a nice veteran center. When they signed him to be their veteran backup center, it was, I use the key word there, backup. Not at a stage in his career to be a starting center for a team that has playoff championship hopes and aspirations. So this move, it's not going to wow you. I'm not trying to sell you a story that's not true. Nick Richards is a nice, solid player. He fits a need for this team. He solves a problem for this team, and more importantly, he sets things back in their proper place at the center position. That's what this move does. Because you said Jusuf Nurkic isn't good enough, isn't playing well enough to warrant a second in this lineup. So that thrusted Mason Plumlee and Oso Ighodaro up the depth chart, up the lineup. And then you saw, that's not what we need from that position. This is not the best roles for those two players. And so you went out and made the move that you made yesterday. And so we are going to settle out a place where Nick Richards is going to take over as the starting center. Mason Plumlee is going to go back to the role that he was supposed to be in when they signed him, the backup center. And Oso is the draft pick, is the young player that they are developing behind the scenes and plays in small spurts. That is this position being in its proper place. And we're going to talk a little bit later on of, is this the missing piece? Does this solve what the Phoenix Suns are looking for? We'll do that in hour number 2 of the program. But just know, on the surface, it at least allows them to make their roster look more like what it is supposed to look like. Roles are more defined. Remember the Chris Haynes cut that we played where players are kind of frustrated with their roles? And I don't think that applies to the two centers. But if roles are unclear, if roles are constantly changing, it's hard to find flow. It's hard to find rhythm. Nick Richards helps restore the order, helps restore the rhythm to this team. That's what this move does. At a bare minimum, that's what this move does. And it also is the one thing that the Suns could do to address a pressing need, which is they get out-rebounded over and over and over again. I don't have the notebook here that I had yesterday. I think it's in my office. I'll have to get it during the break. But I wrote down what the Suns' rebounding statistics have looked like recently, and I'm here to tell you, I don't need the notebook for this. They haven't been good. They've been out-rebounded a lot. And they've been out-rebounded a lot, specifically since they moved Jusuf Nurkic to Mars. So they needed to address this, because if you are going to constantly, specifically on the offensive side, give away extra possessions, you're going to lose basketball games. You are not cohesive enough as a group right now to warrant giving away extra possessions. The defense already is questionable. You're now going to give teams even more chances to beat your questionable defense? That's how you lose to Charlotte. That's how you lose to Atlanta the other night. Again, 20-6. They got out-rebounded on the offensive glass. You are not going to win basketball games in today's NBA if you can't protect the rim and if you can't rebound the basketball. It's not going to happen. You have to be able to limit possessions. You have a bunch of teams that load up and try to score in the 120s. And if you're just going to give away extra chances because you don't have somebody that can rebound the basketball, or you got a 34-year-old veteran center that you're now asking to play 25 to 30 minutes a night when that's not really what he's supposed to be doing, you're going to lose a lot of basketball games. And so this move at least solves that problem. It did create a new problem, the Jusuf Nurkic problem. He is not playing another game for the Phoenix Suns. How they get out of this, if they can find a suitor, if they waive and stretch him, whatever they decide to do, Jusuf Nurkic is not playing basketball anymore for the Phoenix Suns. And so that's your group moving forward. Nick Richards, Mason Plumlee, Oso Ighodaro. That's it. That's the group. And you traded Josh Okogie and 3 second-round picks to do it. So you utilized a bunch of your assets to make this deal right now to try to save your season. And they're back in action again tonight. They take on the 6-32 Washington Wizards, and you know where I stand on this one. Got to have this one tonight. You started off the road trip in the worst possible way with that loss to Atlanta. You did not have a lot of wiggle room as it is. We said 3-2 was the mandate for you on this road trip. Come back above 500. Now you've made a move. Maybe that, at least tonight, gives you a little bit of a boost, although you shouldn't need it against a 6-32 team. But you've got Cleveland coming up. You've got a nice, solid Detroit team coming up. So you've got some games here after this one tonight. Don't look too far ahead on the calendar. Make sure you take care of business tonight to get a win here on this road trip. Because 3-2 is the bare minimum. You lose tonight, it's an 0-2 start. Puts a lot of pressure on you the rest of the way. 480-864-1060 is the phone number for you to hop in. A quick timeout from the basketball. How about some baseball? Yesterday, Corbin Burnes officially introduced as a member of the Arizona Diamondbacks. And he sort of, I don't think he meant to, but he laid down a challenge to the rest of the Diamondbacks rotation. I'll explain next here on the lunch break. KDUS, AM 1060. Yesterday, finally, I don't know if anybody was getting nervous, but it took a little bit for Corbin Burnes to get his official press conference introducing himself as the newest member of the Arizona Diamondbacks after he signed that huge 6-year, $210 million contract with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and yesterday officially announced, officially introduced with his jersey, Scott Boras, his agent in attendance, Ken Kendrick, Mike Hazen, everybody talking, everybody answering questions and talking about the future. And there's a lot to unpack. Scott Boras calling the Diamondbacks an area of concern for the rest of baseball with what they've been doing the last couple of years and by making this move. And listen, they're spending a lot of money. The most money they've ever spent on a team in their history is what their current budget looks like for 2025. And it's the biggest contract they've given out in franchise history. Now, I know with the deferrals, it makes the present-day value a little lower, but on paper, in the headlines, the biggest deal the Diamondbacks have ever given out to a free agent. So this is a big deal. This is a big press conference. And Corbin Burnes said something yesterday that I thought was awesome. That I thought was, it's a small thing in the grand scheme of not only that press conference, but of the season at large. But it just gives you a little bit of an insight into who Corbin Burnes is and what he is bringing to the table. Yesterday at his press conference, and I don't think he meant anything by it in terms of calling out anybody, but he talked about the idea of the competition within the 5 pitchers in the rotation is where it's at. You got to strive to be better than the next guy in the rotation. You have to strive to push everybody else. And I don't think he was saying that there are people in that room that need to be pushed. I think he was making it very clear. This is who I am. This is what I bring to the table. This is what an ace does, everybody. This is what a leader does. He says things like that. He conducts himself in that kind of manner. You don't think his work ethic, the fact that he has been one of the best pitchers in all of baseball, is going to rub off on Ryan Nelson? It's going to rub off on Brandon Pfaadt. It's going to rub off on Merrill Kelly, on Zach Gallen. You don't think his presence is going to have an impact? And oh, by the way, he just upped the stakes a little bit by saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to be better than every single one of you guys in this rotation. And that is going to push all those guys to say, oh, yeah, well, watch this. And it's going to bring out the best in all of them. That's why I love this move. This is not getting a retread, has been, over the hill, back 9 of his career starting pitcher. And you know that the Diamondbacks in recent memory have signed a guy just like that. And it didn't work out. And everybody's comparing that contract to this one. This is different. You're getting a bona fide ace. You're getting a leader. You're getting somebody who still has it in the tank to push everybody else in that rotation. And I know some of you are probably looking ahead to next offseason where Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly could be out the door. I get it. But you've got 2 young pitchers in your rotation for this year in Ryan Nelson and Brandon Pfaadt. Corbin Burnes is going to have an immense impact on those guys. Do yourself a favor today. Look at the rotations that Corbin Burnes has been a part of, and look at how those guys have elevated their games. There are not household names in some of those other rotations that Corbin Burnes has been a part of in Milwaukee and in Baltimore for the one season, but he elevates them because that's that internal competition. That's what brings out the best in everybody. And Corbin Burnes told you yesterday, he let it all out on the table. That's what he's bringing. That's what he is bringing to Salt River Field later on in February. That's what he is bringing to the Diamondbacks for at least the next 2 seasons. He is going to push everybody in that room. This is why I love this move. This is why the Diamondbacks coming off the top rope, being the mystery team, slamming down on everybody else and saying, yeah, watch this, 6 years, 210 for the best free agent starting pitcher. Because it's not only getting the top free agent starting pitcher, it's not only getting a National League Cy Young candidate, it's not only making your rotation one of the best in all of baseball. It's not just that. Those are great. You would take all of those things on their own, but you're also getting somebody who is going to help lead the next chapter of your rotation, that he is going to bridge the gap into the next version of this rotation if and when Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly leave at the end of the season. And for right now, for this season, you have all 5 of those guys. And I didn't even mention Eduardo Rodriguez. And I didn't even mention potentially Jordan Montgomery still being on this team. So we were excited when the move happened, and I told you all the reasons to get on board with this. Yesterday, the press conference, hearing Scott Boras talk about the Diamondbacks the way that he did, hearing Corbin Burnes talk about what it means to him to be here, and they left no stone unturned yesterday. They didn't pull any punches. Corbin Burnes made it clear. Yeah, I picked here because this is where I live. This is great. This is home. And I believe the phrase was, in it to win it. Corbin Burnes put it on the table yesterday. Put the expectations high. Put the expectations towards making a playoff run, making a deep playoff run, being one of the best teams in the National League. Put those expectations on this team because they are going to embrace it. They have the talent to embrace it. They have the manager to embrace it, and they have the culture to embrace it. And you know who's going to help with that culture? The guy you just signed to a 6-year, $210 million contract. Yesterday was awesome. It should get you fired up. I can't wait for pitchers and catchers to report. I can't wait for baseball to be here. Because the first series of the year, Corbin Burnes, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly. You'll take your you feel pretty good about your chances if those 3 guys are on the hill for you in a series. You feel pretty good about watching those guys carve up an opposing team's lineup. And so, after all the wait yesterday, Corbin Burnes officially introduced as a member of the Arizona Diamondbacks, and Corbin Burnes made it very clear. This team's in it to win it. This is where I want to be. We have the, quote, potential for a title run. Scott Boras calling the Diamondbacks a subject of concern. And this quote from Ken Kendrick, how do you not love this? Quote, we have the potential to be a championship team. Our job is to try and do everything we can to put the best team on the field possible that we can afford. We're stretching the budget. It won't be the last time, end quote. Listen, you can't be the Mets. You don't have a hedge fund billionaire owner that is sinking in his own dollars because he's worth $17 or $20 billion into the team. You don't have that. You're not the Dodgers, also owned by a hedge fund group that can go out and give Shohei Ohtani $700 million and defer basically all of it. You don't have those resources. You're not the Yankees. You're not the Cubs. You're not the Red Sox. You don't have these big brands that generate a ton of revenue. You don't even have a TV deal that pays you right now. But to hear an owner who has all of the reasons in the world, think about this for a second. Ken Kendrick has all the reasons in the world to not put a competitive team on the field this year. You made it to the World Series. He invested further into that team to the tune of the highest payroll that they've ever had in the history of their franchise. And they won 89 games and missed the playoffs. Not just they went to the playoffs and got bounced, they missed the playoffs entirely after you spent all that money in the offseason. After another year in which you don't have a TV deal, MLB is running your rights. All of the excuses in the world to not do anything, to not further invest. In fact, we on this show told you that we thought the payroll was going to come down, that they couldn't sustain those types of numbers. They don't have the revenue. Where is it coming from? And yet you have an owner right there that told you, plain as day, we are spending more than we've ever spent before. We are stretching the budget. He admitted it. He admitted that we're kind of uncomfortable right now. This isn't really where we want to be. But you know what? This team has potential. And it is our responsibility as an organization to reward that potential. And you got to love your owner looking into the camera and saying, it is not going to be the last time we stretch this budget. And again, you're not going to play in the same pool as the Dodgers or the Mets or the Yankees, the Phillies. You're not going to play in that pool. But what you showed by signing Corbin Burnes and what you showed by those quotes yesterday is you are not a little small market team that can be forgotten about. Now, Scott Boras doing his agent thing, but he's also probably telling a little bit of a half-truth. The Diamondbacks are a subject of concern for everybody else. Because now, anytime a free agent comes along, there is going to be a price point where the Diamondbacks can be thrusted into that conversation. Corbin Burnes was a unique scenario, but Ken Kendrick told you yesterday. He made it very, very, very clear. We are in this to win it. We are going to support this organization, this front office in those pursuits. And this isn't the last time that you are going to see us do that. I don't know how you are not skipping to work today, doing cartwheels in your office. If you are an Arizona Diamondbacks fan, if you are a big baseball fan, you should be overjoyed by what you heard yesterday. Overjoyed. Over the moon. That's all you want. All you want to know is you have an ownership that is willing to invest. And you can't invest the money that the Mets or Dodgers do. I get that. But you can do this. And by doing this, and by stretching the budget, and by saying that you'll do it again, that should get you excited to know that this isn't just going to be some shooting star of a moment for the Diamondbacks, and then they're going to fade back into obscurity. This GM, this manager, this owner, they are all on the same page. They are working together. They are rowing the boat in the same direction, and that direction is towards a championship. This is what every fan base of every team in any sport wants. They want to know their owner is in it to win it and is willing to do the necessary things, the necessary moves in order to get it done. And Ken Kendrick is doing something that, I got to tell you, I don't know if there's a bunch of other owners that are doing this. He doesn't have a TV deal. Major League Baseball is controlling the TV rights of the Arizona Diamondbacks. You all know that. And yet he's about to run, back-to-back years, the highest payroll in team history. Last year, they missed the playoffs, and he said, you know what? Still believe in this team. Boom. Highest number ever. Again, I don't know how you're not skipping to work today after that press conference. How the adrenaline is pumping for the season to begin to watch Corbin Burnes on the mound, to know that the expectations are there. It is playoffs, baby. It is, we're taking it to the Dodgers. That is exactly where you want to be as a franchise. 480-864-1060, the phone number for you to join the conversation. We'll close up hour number one here on the other side. There's one common theme so far in all of the mock drafts. And oh, yes, it's mock draft season, everybody. There is one common theme for the Arizona Cardinals in these mock drafts. It's a position that you know is going to be a common theme for the Cardinals in these mock drafts. But is it the right way to fill that position? We'll explore next on the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Wrapping up hour number one of the lunch break. Appreciate you being here today on the Thursday edition of the program. Huge Friday show for you tomorrow. We got Schubert 6 picks to make, although it's only 4 picks. But we'll make our picks tomorrow. Huge week last week, 5-1. I have not taken the victory lap that I deserve to take on that. 5-1 in the playoffs. We lost the first game of the entire weekend and then rattled off the remaining 5. Huge weekend for us, so hope you followed along if you did, because other than Week 18, which, again, we warned you ahead of time, do not follow us on Week 18. That is not the suggestion. We've been, the second half of the season, have just been on fire, and it continued last week with a 5-1 postseason record, and we'll hope to continue that with our 4 picks tomorrow on the show. So we'll get you ready for everything divisional round tomorrow. We'll make our picks there. Huge Football Friday edition of the show. But let's get back to the Thursday edition of the show, and let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals because it is mock draft season. We've got the Senior Bowl coming up right around the corner. For those of you watching on YouTube, I've got my Senior Bowl hat on here today. Scouting Combine, free agency is going to come and go, and then we are going to be left with my favorite day in all of sports, and that is day one, night one of the NFL Draft. And the Arizona Cardinals are going to be on the clock in the first round, and they're going to have a decision to make. And so far, there is a common theme that is emerging among a bunch of mock drafts. And let's face it, it's not difficult to come to this conclusion, but you're seeing a lot of these mock drafts end up with the Cardinals taking a pass rusher in the first round, acquiring a rookie edge rusher with their first round pick. And again, it should not come as a surprise. We know how important that position is. It is a part of the 5 pillars, and it is the only part of the 5 pillars that is completely unoccupied. The other 4 pillars, you've got at least somebody there. Quarterback, Kyler Murray. Wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr. Left tackle, Paris Johnson Jr. Corner, Garrett Williams. You have a pillar. You have a player at every other pillar so far. Edge, I'm leaving the dramatic pause in there. There's nobody. Doesn't exist. And so it's not a surprise that somebody would look at where the Cardinals are at, what plagued them last year, and what plagued them last year was inconsistency when it came to getting after the quarterback. You got to have pressure in this league, man. Look at the quarterbacks that are going to be playing this weekend. Jalen Hurts, Matt Stafford, Jaden Daniels, Jared Goff, C.J. Stroud, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. Name me the scrub. Name me the bad quarterback on that list. You can't. Those are all really good quarterbacks. You want to throw those guys off in the postseason. You want to make them look like the way Jordan Love looked, the way Justin Herbert looked, the way those guys looked in the postseason. You got to be able to throw them off platform. You have to be able to get consistent pressure and get them off rhythm, off timing. Now, some of those guys, you get out in space, it's almost as bad as having them in the pocket. But you got to get an offense off script, out of rhythm. And the way you do that is with pass rush. You have to get after the quarterback. You have to have a bona fide stud. And so here is where I'm going to push back on the entire draft narrative of drafting an edge rusher. Are you going to be able to tell me with 100% certainty that a team that has the mandate, whether it has been told to them or not, we all know what the mandate is for this team. 4 wins, 8 wins, you got to be above 500 and make the playoffs. So we all know what they have to accomplish next season. So with that mandate, do you think the Arizona Cardinals want to get to a place where their biggest hole, their biggest need on defense, they are filling with a rookie? Is that the right way to do this? Because, and I hate to pile on him, we talked about him a little bit earlier in the week, but there was no doubt. Slam dunk, no doubt. One of my favorite phrases in draft circles, run the card to the podium. Not even a second thought. There wasn't even anybody else got an idea. Marvin Harrison Jr. the pick. And he was supposed to be slam dunk, no doubt, super high floor, super high ceiling. He's got a Hall of Fame wide receiver as a dad. Just going to be an instant stud. How great was his rookie season? So that player, that prospect that was supposed to be can't miss. Trevor Lawrence as a quarterback was supposed to be can't-miss, franchise-altering, generational talent. I think Jacksonville fans are still waiting to see that. You see flashes of it, but you don't see it consistently enough. You've got a playoff mandate in 2025. You can't tell me your best way of getting there is the most important position of need for you this offseason you address with a rookie. You can't convince me that that's how this should go. You want to draft a pass rusher in the first round to get a young player in the door? I got no problem with that. But you better be making the big splash in free agency. You better be calling up the Raiders to see if they want to move on from Max Crosby. You better be seeing if Myles Garrett is freed up in Cleveland. You better be making those phone calls. That's where the splash has to come from. You can't walk into 2025 and say, oh, no, we solved the edge problem. We spent a first-round pick on it. You told me you solved the wide receiver problem. And while I still think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a stud here in this league and showed everything that you wanted to see from him in the second half down the stretch, he did not have the rookie campaign that we all thought he could. And so if you get that type of production out of your edge pass rusher in the first round, to go along with Darius Robinson, who, let's face it, it's basically going to be a rookie season all over again for him. That's what you're going to present as your ability to get after the quarterback. Not going to fly. Certainly not going to fly here. You've got to do more. You've got to get multiple guys into that room. You have to get multiple players of a high caliber into that room. You got to make the big splash. Now, there are names out there in free agency. I don't know if I would describe any of them as a big splash, but there are names out there in free agency that you can go out and get that at least give you a veteran presence to pair with that youngster, pair with that rookie. But when we get to night one of the NFL draft and the Cardinals are on the clock, they better have somebody already on the roster, already on the depth chart at that position. Because you don't just need one pass rusher. You need multiple pass rushers. Because you decided against making the big splash, or at least a bigger splash. Not a full-blown cannonball into the pool, but maybe a belly flop. You decided against that with your actions at the NFL trade deadline. And one could argue that that decision led to what we saw in the second half, or at least post-bye. One could argue that not doing more at the deadline, team ran out of gas. Team didn't have that secret sauce, the special recipe to get after the quarterback and help them stay in some of these football games. So this has to be priority 1, 2, and 3. And I know T. Higgins, I get it. Trust me, we're driving the bus on that. We are speeding down the highway at 85, driving past everybody waving. T. Higgins on the Cardinals next year. You kidding me? But pass rush is more important because you invested last year in Marvin Harrison Jr., and you expect that jump in year 2. Now, you need to get him a running mate, and it needs to be T. Higgins. But you don't have really anything in-house when it comes to a pass rusher. And so you can't get to draft night and make a pick and go, we're good. You can't sit back, kick your feet up on the desk, and say, mission accomplished. We achieved our goals this offseason. No. The moment the new league year opens and the moment that you're able to make phone calls and have these conversations, I'm on the phone with Vegas. I want them to see my name on the caller ID so much they get annoyed and they consider blocking me. Those are the lengths that I want to go to try to get Max Crosby. Myles Garrett. Not necessarily a true pass rusher, but I'd call Tennessee and say, hey, listen, you're doing a full reset here. You got the number 1 pick. You're taking a quarterback. Jeffrey Simmons available? I would be so annoying and obnoxious that teams would consider reporting me to the league and saying this dude won't take no for an answer. That's how annoying I'd be. Because do you want to know why I'm making this point? The Giants last year did this. They got their pass rusher. They traded for Brian Burns from the Carolina Panthers. Do you know? And for those of you who watched the offseason Hard Knocks that followed the New York Giants, you know this answer. But for those of you out there that maybe didn't consume the Hard Knocks, like me, I do not consume Hard Knocks. That's a hot take of mine. I'm out on Hard Knocks altogether. But I saw the clip. I know what happened. Do you know when that deal first got put together? The Senior Bowl. Do you know when the Senior Bowl is? Less than a month away. That's where these things start to materialize. That work starts right now. And so if I'm Monty Ossenfort, I might consider going to Mobile, wearing a big sandwich board that says, I want to talk to you about your pass rushers. That's how obnoxious I would be about it. because that's how important of a need it is for the Arizona Cardinals. That's how important it is. I'm making phone calls. I'm sending text messages. I'm wearing the sandwich board to the Senior Bowl. I mean, I am going all out. I might even rent a plane and fly it over the stadium there in Mobile to let everybody know my intentions. You can't leave this to a 20, 21, potentially 22-year-old kid that you get on draft night. You can't do it. You have too high of expectations. You went 8-9 this year. You were in first place after 10 games. And you collapsed down the stretch. I think it's fair. We can call it what it is. They collapsed post-bye. There's no room for that this season. You got to hit the ground running, because one of the reasons why you were 6-4 at the bye is you gave away a couple of games. You gave away that game in Buffalo. You made critical mistakes in Green Bay that made that game non-competitive. You have to hit the ground running next season. And the way you do that is not by a rookie coming in and getting up to speed in the NFL. I understand you got to think long term and you want to build a winner. I'm not against the idea of taking a pass rusher with my first round pick. I'm against that being my one true answer to that position for 2025. That is what I am against. So I have no problem with your mock drafts talking about it, but that cannot be the only move. That cannot be the first move that the Cardinals make at that position. Oh, we got to close the show with some baseball, a little football. Hour number 2, let's get back into the Phoenix Suns. Let's get back into the move that they made yesterday. After trading for Nick Richards, the Suns, they don't have much capital left. Is that the end of their Jimmy Butler pursuit? We'll talk about it next. The lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Oh, yeah, hour number 2 of the program. We welcome you back in the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Appreciate you making us part of your day. And the big story for us here in hour number 1, and now to start hour number 2, the Suns made their move yesterday. Nick Richards, the newest member of the Phoenix Suns, Josh Okogie, and 3 second-round picks out the door. Center Nick Richards and a second-round pick back to the Phoenix Suns, solving their center problem, creating a new center problem with Jusuf Nurkic, but also potentially taking the big move off the table. We've talked about the 3 paths for the Phoenix Suns: the big move, the small tweak, or the do-nothing approach. That's been what's in front of the Phoenix Suns for the last, 2 weeks or so. Which path do you pick? And with each passing game, I think we've changed, well, maybe this makes sense, or, maybe that makes sense, or maybe they should do this. Because this team hasn't given us a real stabilizing run to pick one path and stay on that path. It feels like we go down one path and we say, you know what? I don't like the way this path looks, and you just turn around and then you get back to the fork in the road, because we don't go that far down the path. We go maybe a couple of steps so we can still see the other paths, right? You know when you go hiking and there's the multiple trails and you're at the starting point, but all the trails at the beginning you can see where they go, and then after a while, the one goes off into the mountains, the other one just kind of stays on the ground. We are just a couple of steps into the path, and we go, you know what? I like that path better. And then we just turn around, and then we go to that path. And then we're like, you know what? Let me go over there. That's what we've been doing with the Phoenix Suns for the last couple of weeks. Yesterday, the Suns picked a path, and they walked down that path. And they are so far down the path, I don't think they would know how to get back out of the path, because yesterday they made the decision. They told all of you, they told all of us, we are going to see this through. And we're going to see this through by making a minor tweak. And we're going to see this through by trading Josh Okogie. And we're going to see this through by trading 3 second-round draft picks. That's what they told you yesterday. And I think they also told you they're not trading for Jimmy Butler. The Jimmy Butler dream is over. We have woken up from that dream. And now we're in the reality of Nick Richards is the trade move for the Phoenix Suns. And now maybe they do something else. And maybe they're able to do something else on the margin. But Jimmy Butler, not happening. Here's what the Suns have left to move. Pick-wise, at least. A 2025 second rounder and the 2031 first rounder. And it feels like they are against moving that 2031 first rounder. Because let's try to put ourselves in the shoes of the Phoenix Suns. Let's for a second act like we're all members of the front office. There are reports out that we are the most eager in our pursuit of Jimmy Butler. I'm not making that up. There were reports that the Suns were the team that were the hottest in pursuit of Jimmy Butler. There are the reports that Jimmy Butler only wants to come to the Phoenix Suns. And so if I was that intrigued 2 weeks ago in Jimmy Butler, and I knew Jimmy Butler wanted to come here, and I wanted to do this because I want to keep Kevin Durant happy. I want Kevin Durant to sign an extension here. I want to potentially get out of the Bradley Beal business. If you wanted to do all that, you probably would have moved the 2031 first-round pick if that's what your mentality was, if that's where you stood on this. If you were that eager to get Jimmy Butler, as the reports made it seem, then the 2031 first-rounder might not have been that big of an obstacle. But Bradley Beal is still on the Phoenix Suns. Jimmy Butler is still on the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler tomorrow is going to return from his 7-game suspension and still be a member of the Miami Heat. What does that tell you? That tells you the Suns ain't interested in moving the 2031 first-round pick. They're not interested in giving it up for Jimmy Butler, and they are sure not interested in giving it up to get somebody to take Bradley Beal's contract. That's what they've told you. And so, what's left to trade? If the 2031 first rounder is off the table, you have 1 second rounder for this season, and that's it. Now, I've never seen the movie, but I've seen the meme pretty regularly. And again, I'm the older one here on the show, so producer Dylan, this one might fly right over your head, and I'm hoping some members of the audience can help me out. You can just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Pulp Fiction, you've seen it, thumbs up, thumbs. You've seen it. Okay, so then this is going to just land right in your wheelhouse. You know the meme where John Travolta's character is looking around the room? That's what the Suns are doing with their trade assets. Nothing left, everybody. If the 2031 pick's off the table, you've got a second rounder, and that's it. You are a second apron team. You can't aggregate salaries. Oh, that's nice. Let me just check my notes here. Oh, you got a $3.2 million exemption with yesterday's trade. Great. You're still not landing Jimmy Butler. Today, January 16th, 2025, and you can probably backdate it to yesterday, but we weren't on the air to make the proclamation. The Jimmy Butler to Phoenix Suns thing is done. It's dead. It's over with. It's not happening. The Suns told you yesterday what they thought they needed to do before the trade deadline. And the beautiful thing about this program is if it changes, if Jimmy Butler does get traded to the Phoenix Suns, I will be sitting right in this chair. I will be talking into this microphone, and we will play this back. And I will reap all of the consequences that come with that. But I feel really good about making that statement here today. I feel really good about Jimmy Butler not being a Phoenix Sun. What do you have left to trade? You've got nothing left on the table. You've taken the 2031 pick off the table. Because if that was your obstacle, at some point, you would have seen the way the team has played recently, and you would have gotten over that obstacle. But that tells me you're thinking, maybe this isn't going to work out the way we think. And maybe this summer we're going to have some tough conversations. And so why don't we just, in case, keep the escape hatch, keep the escape pod? We'll make improvements. We'll go out and get a 27-year-old center who not only can maybe help us this year with our rebounding problem, got out-rebounded 54-37 the other night, 20-6 on the offensive glass. He'll help with that. He'll help restore our center rotation to the way that it's supposed to be with Jusuf Nurkic. It gets us out of the Jusuf Nurkic business, which very clear we're sending him to Mars, Pluto. We're good. It helps with that. Helps long-term. Now we've got a center that we can kind of have as our starting center if we want to reset. But you know what? We're keeping the reset on the table. We're keeping it right here. We're keeping the big red button nice and close. That's what they said yesterday. Did yesterday's actions tell you that that team's going to double up and say, we're also going to trade for Jimmy Butler? I didn't feel that way. I felt like yesterday was the message to you. Yesterday was small tweak. We've got Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. We're supposed to be better than this. We will be better than this. Those three guys are not going to allow us to flounder below 500. Those three guys are not going to allow us to flounder outside of the playoff race. Those three guys are talented enough to get us out of this mess. We have the coaching staff, we have the players, and we're just going to make a small tweak to what is a big need for us, which is rebounding. And we're going to go out and get a guy who in 9 starts this season has averaged a double-double at the center spot, allowing us to move Mason Plumlee and Oso down the depth chart to where they properly belong right now. That's what we're going to do yesterday. We're going to tweak our roster. Now, the difference between this small tweak and the small tweak that the Cardinals made in season, because if you'll remember, I was very against the small tweak that the Cardinals made. I did not think that was enough the moment it happened because it broke on the show. And we said that wasn't enough. This move, I think, is enough. Because the Cardinals have a long-term future that they're building towards. The Suns don't have a long-term future. Their window is now. Their window is this season. And with the Cardinals, we thought you could do a little bit of both, short-term, long-term. The Phoenix Suns, there's no short and long-term. There is no move that helps us now while also giving us, it's moves like this. This was the move. Kind of helps you in the short term, kind of helps you in the long term, but doesn't really do both. Doesn't really do one really well. Whereas with the Cardinals, you're 6-4. You're leading the division. You're in first place. This is the time to go for it. The division's right there. It's open for you. The Suns, we're 19-20. We're not even in a playoff spot. Two very different spots that the teams found themselves in. When you're in this spot, when you're 19 and 20 and you have the talent that the Suns have on the roster, yeah, you make a small tweak to try to get yourself back into it. You don't put all your chips in the middle for a team that's below 500. You don't put all your chips in the middle for a team that's not in a playoff spot. You don't do that. But for a team that's in a playoff spot, for a team that is in first place, for a team that injuries, lack of talent in general on the roster, because it's a roster that is being rebuilt here over a couple of seasons, yeah, you reward that. The Suns made the right move yesterday. If you were going to make a move, yesterday's move was the right move. And Jimmy Butler is off the table. The dream is over. They don't have the assets, and I don't think they have the appetite, because I think they are coming around to what this season truly is going to be. They are going to allow this group to see it through, to see if their overall talent level, which should be better than 19 and 20, gets them to the promised land, gets them to the playoffs, gets them a date with a team, either in the play-in tournament or in the first round of the NBA playoffs. They're going to ride it out with this group, but I think they are starting to see the writing on the wall. They are starting to see that we might need to discuss the escape plan this summer. 480-864-1060 is the phone number for you to join in on any of this. Coming up on the other side, Nick Richards, he is in. Is that the missing piece? Is that the thing the Suns needed to do? That's next on the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. When a team makes a trade or makes an acquisition, there are times where you think that's the missing piece. That's the thing that puts a team over the top, or it fills the issue that has been plaguing the team all year long. And you don't feel like anything else needs to be done, right? You get to the Major League Baseball trade deadline, and the bullpen is just a mess. You're just giving away games like, you know what? I'm going to go out and I'm going to get a reliever. I'm going to add A.J. Puck to my bullpen. I'm going to get another setup guy for the next couple of seasons. Or the NFL trade deadline rolls around and I need a pass rusher, so I'm going to go out and trade for Baron Browning, right? Those are just recent examples of what teams in this market have done. But you get to the deadline, you address a need, and you're good. You like the rest of your roster, right? Is that how you feel about yesterday? Is that how you feel about the addition of Nick Richards to this team? You probably feel good about it. You probably feel a sense of relief that the center position is at least somewhat stabilized. You feel a relief that you're going to get somebody in there that can help with rebounding because you watch the games. You watch them give away extra offensive possessions. You watch them get out-rebounded on a regular basis. And so bringing somebody in that's 27 years old, that's athletic, that can help with rebounding, you probably feel pretty good about that. You probably feel excited by what Nick Richards is going to bring to the table. But you probably don't feel like this solves everything. I can be as excited as I want to be about Nick Richards. And I truly am in a different place than I thought I was going to be with the Suns making a move, because I've been the do-nothing guy. I've been the this isn't working guy. And so giving away Josh Okogie and 3 second-round picks, that's tough. That's not nothing. The Suns didn't give away nothing yesterday. They gave up a rotational player and 3 second-round picks. And more importantly, they utilized a lot of their assets that they had available to them. And so it'd be pretty easy for me to come in here and destroy them today for doing that. But I don't think that's where I'm at, because I want to give them credit, because I think they are finally thinking the way that this team should have been thinking for a long time, because I have said many times over, it is easy to be the owner that comes in and makes everybody happy with the big splashes. It's easy to be the new owner that comes in and trades for Kevin Durant, that trades for Bradley Beal, that makes the Suns a second apron team. It is easy to win over a fan base with that. It's hard to win over a fan base during stints like this. It's hard to win over a fan base by making tough, shrewd decisions. And I think yesterday was a tough but shrewd decision by the Phoenix Suns, because I think it's a decision that does help them this year, but does provide us, I think, a little window, a little glimpse into what this team thinks long term. And so that's why I'm not going to destroy them today, because I'm betting that they are starting to realize that this is it. You get 2025, and then if this ends in a missed playoff appearance, if this ends with a below 500 record, then we're not talking about a Kevin Durant extension. We're talking about a Kevin Durant trade. We're talking about a Bradley Beal trade. And I think yesterday is a brief window into the team coming around to that thinking. So that's why I'm not going to grill them today. I'm not going to destroy them today. But Nick Richards isn't the cure-all. He isn't the piece that waves the magic wand and solves everything. This team still had a rebounding problem with Jusuf Nurkic in the lineup. This team still had a rebounding problem with Mason Plumlee and with Oso Ighodaro. This team still had a problem with somebody else scoring. This team still had a problem with figuring out how they were going to navigate and maneuver Bradley Beal off the bench. All of those problems still exist. This team still has to figure out how to operate like a team and not just a bunch of individuals that went down to the local park and are shooting hoops together. Those problems still exist today. They existed yesterday. They existed the day before that. They existed last week. They existed last month. Those problems did not go away by acquiring Nick Richards. You checked off some of the boxes, but not all of them. The Phoenix Suns still have stuff to work on. And they don't need new players to do it. They just need the current players to figure it out. The current players have to figure out how to work together better. The other players have to figure out who is going to step up and support Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, who right now are carrying a majority of the workload offensively. I mean, Devin Booker has 30-plus points in 4 of his last 5 games. We're starting to see the Devin Booker that we wanted to see. Kevin Durant has been the same Kevin Durant all year long when healthy. Bradley Beal has to find his rhythm in this bench role, and somebody else, Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, Ryan Dunn, somebody else has to step up. And they have to play more like a team. That's what's still in front of them. And I don't think a trade for Jimmy Butler would have fixed that. I don't think any other move that they make would fix that. That's got to come from inside. That's got to come from coaching, and it has to come from the players themselves. And so you're allowed to be excited today. You're allowed to say, I like what the Suns did yesterday. You can be happy. You can be excited. You can think that that was a nice, solid move yesterday. I'd agree with you. But when this team takes the floor tonight against Washington, I'm going to walk into that game tonight. Nice early start, too, because they're playing on the East Coast, 5 o'clock. Going to sneak about an hour of that game in before I head to my cold, chilly softball practice this evening. We'll DVR the game and catch the rest of it afterwards, but at least get to see an hour of it. And hopefully, for the Suns and for all of our sake, maybe you just get out to a big lead in that hour and you just put it on cruise control maybe. That'd be nice against a 6-32 team tonight. Would be a solid approach. You're playing a 6-32 team. How about maybe, I don't know, we get an early 15, 20-point lead and we can put this thing on cruise control. Make it a nice, easy, relaxing start to tomorrow's show. Close out the week on a Friday. I don't know, just a thought, just a suggestion. But when I turn the TV to that game tonight at 5 o'clock, I still have the same worry about the Phoenix Suns that I did yesterday before Nick Richards got traded. I have the same concerns that I had a week ago. That I haven't seen enough from this team consistently to tell me that they are acting and playing like a team. That this experiment with Bradley Beal coming off the bench is going to work long term. We told you the numbers. They're all over the place for Beal off the bench. That's really where my focus is right now, is does that work? They're 4-2 record-wise since the move. The stats for Bradley Beal are very up and down. I think you can get away with it with the teams that they have played in that 6-game stretch. And let me tell you, I think you can get away with it tonight against the Wizards. Are you going to be able to get away with it against Detroit, against Cleveland, when you come back and play Minnesota and the Clippers and the Mavs and everybody else up the board in the Western Conference? I don't know. That's the test I need to see get past at this point. That's the question I have left unanswered. You're going to operate more optimally with Nick Richards in the fold at the center spot. You clearly thought you had a Jusuf Nurkic problem. You have rid yourself of Jusuf Nurkic. Now, you have to figure out how to play like a team. You have to figure out how to play like a collective unit. And do that against good, solid teams in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. And so when you take the court tonight, it's the same issues, the same questions. And I don't know if tonight answers them. I'll tell you what, though. I'd like a blowout. I'd like a nice, easy cruise control tonight. I'd like to walk in here tomorrow and talk about a 20-point Suns victory where they were able to back off and play some of their rotation players and bench players in the second half and in the fourth quarter. I'd love that. That'd be a great way to start our weekend. That'd be a great way to start our Friday to set the tone for the rest of the weekend. That'd be awesome. That's what you should expect playing a 6-32 team. That's what you want to see from your team tonight. I don't want to see this team have to play a close back-and-forth game in the fourth quarter where they're grinding it out to the last possession. I'm curious because I don't know the number off the top of my head. I want to see how much Phoenix is favored by on the road tonight. You are 11.5-point favorites on the road in Washington. There is zero excuse for this to not be one of those games that you put on cruise control in the second half. Because if you don't, boy, tomorrow's show is going to be fun. Boy, is tomorrow's show going to be a good time. Washington has lost 7 in a row. You had a small little winning streak right there. Now, you're not going to have Bradley Beal tonight. A couple of hours ago, we found out ankle's not going to play in tonight's game against the Wizards. That doesn't matter. You still have Kevin Durant. You still have Devin Booker. You are playing a 6-32 basketball team tonight. You are playing a team that is 11.5-point underdogs at home. Put this game on cruise control. Put this game in the rearview mirror by halftime. Coming up on the other side of the break, it's the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. So how about we ask this question? Are the NFL playoffs broken? And how might we fix them? It's next on the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. We will make our official plays tomorrow on the show. The adjustment that we are making to the Schubert 6 here, now that there are only 4 games, we're just going to chop off the 2 lowest point values. So we've got a 6-point play, a 5-point play, a 4-point play, and a 3-point play. So that's where we're at. No 1-point play, no 2-point play. You're going to make some picks with conviction on tomorrow's show. That's what we are going to do on this show tomorrow. So the divisional round tomorrow, we'll dive more into that. We'll do the NFL look ahead. We'll do everything on tomorrow's show. But I did want to talk There are, I would say, a handful of writers in sports that when they write something, I go out of my way to read it, especially if it's a long form type story. Jeff Passan in baseball is one of them. And in football, one of the guys that has become, he's a guy that has entered into that list for me, is Bill Barnwell over at ESPN. Data numbers guy over there, looks at everything through an analytical lens, and that's the background that I look at sports through. And so if he writes something, I'm intrigued. And he wrote something this morning that, listen, when you start a story by saying, should the NFL change its playoff format, I'm clicking. I'm in. You got your click. I'm going to read. You've signed me up. And Barnwell kind of goes through that this is the 5th year that we've had the 14-team playoff format and looks at some of the criticisms because there are some people that don't like that the Buffalo Bills had to play on Wild Card Weekend with how many wins that they had. The Bucks and Steelers being in the playoffs, barely getting in and being, quick exits. It's not pretty, right? The college football playoff kind of has this. People complaining about the first-round games and complaining about how they were all blowouts, right? So we kind of do this. The 7 seed, 1 and 9, since the format expanded to 14 teams, right? There's all of these things. So what Barnwell does is he goes through 6 potential options, 6 potential fixes to the NFL playoffs. And I thought, you know what? Love this. Let's read them and let me weigh in on them. And maybe I'll throw out some suggestions that aren't on this list. Well, option 1, and this is going to be very quickly a no, but that would be to go back to the 12-team playoff. What that solves is you get the buys change a little bit. You remove the 7 seed from the table, right? A 7 seed that is 1 and 9 since the expansion. Here's the issue. And I don't know if anybody knows this, so maybe gather very close to your listening device, everybody. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. The NFL likes money, and they are not going to give away 2 playoff games and all of the money. Have you seen what Amazon is willing to pay for a football game? Have you seen what Netflix is willing to pay for a football game? I would not be surprised if we go to 16 teams. Well, that's exactly what Bill Barnwell makes his next suggestion, would be to expand to a 16-team playoff, which would be half the league making the playoffs. That's more money, more revenue, but that dilutes your regular season. That dilutes your process. If you complain now about teams not deserving to get in, if you complain now about the quality of postseason games, moving to 16 teams and giving 2 more spots, going to 8 seeds, that would be disastrous. You have to think of the teams that just missed. Let's look at this real quick. Let's look at the teams that just missed this past year in the NFL, in each conference. The team that just missed in the AFC is the Cincinnati Bengals. And I hear you, Joe Burrow, right? But the teams directly behind them that could have very easily been in that spot, the Indianapolis Colts or the Miami Dolphins. You really want to watch either of those teams in the playoffs? You really want to see the Colts? I mean, we destroyed them yesterday on the show. They're going to Berlin next year. They are the home team for the Berlin game. You really want to see Joe Flacco, Anthony Richardson, and the Colts buffoon around in the first round of the playoffs? You want to see Miami go on the road to a cold weather with Tyler Huntley playing quarterback because Tua had a hip injury? Is that really what you want to see? So, yeah, some years you get a Cincinnati, but other years you get an Indianapolis Colts. You get a Miami Dolphins. And then in the NFC, who would it have been? Would have been the Seattle Seahawks. Sure, great. 10-win team. You could say that they're deserving, but in other years, it's the Atlanta Falcons. It's the Arizona Cardinals. We both watched the Cardinals at the end of the season. You know what that was like. They were not deserving of a playoff spot. The Atlanta Falcons had to change quarterbacks in the second half to try to save their season to make the playoffs. So expanding to 16 teams, half the league, no thank you, I'm good. Here's option number 3. Reseed the playoffs based on record, regardless of where each team finished within its division. So then you are taking winning the division completely off the table. You are saying, I don't care if you finished second in your division. If you have more wins than the 2, 3, 4 seeds that also won their divisions, you are now the 2 seed. I don't know about this one. I get it. I understand Minnesota winning as many games as they did and becoming the first 14-win wildcard team ever in the history of the league rubs some people the wrong way. I get it. You had a chance in Week 18 to not do that. You had a chance to beat the Lions and not be a wildcard team. You knew. It didn't sneak up on you, the circumstances. You knew stepping foot on that football field, win, you win the division, lose, you're a wild card team and you have to go on the road. And oh, by the way, you're going on the road to the worst division winner, which should be a favorable matchup to you. And then you laid a goose egg in that playoff game. That's on you, man. That's not on the format. That's not on your division. You play in a tough division. Great. That's how it works. I'm not punishing a team if the rest of their division stinks and they're able to get into the playoffs, and I'm not rewarding a team for not winning their division because another team is better than them. They're better than them. Okay, you didn't win your division. Those are the rules of engagement. That's the way the playoffs work. And the moment you change this, then why play your division 2 times a year? Why not just play the rest of the league? You just completely change your scheduling at that point. You play your division 6 times a year. 6 of your 17 games right now are against your division. Why? Because that's the most important part. So win your divisional games. Beat the Lions. Beat the Packers. Beat the Bears. And then you're not in that spot. Option number 4. Take away home playoff games from divisional champs without a winning record. Again, you are punishing a team. I know they finished below 500, but you are punishing a team for what the rest of their division did. You are punishing a team for everybody else in the division stinking worse than they did. Now, if you win your division, no matter what, you deserve a home playoff game. So maybe I'm old school in this regard, but I don't like this. I don't like the idea of taking away, because if you're going to do this, if you're going to take away the home playoff games from divisional champs without a winning record, then you should just do the other thing, which is you should just reseed the playoffs based on record. Because you're already devaluing a divisional championship anyway by saying, hey, if you have a losing record, it doesn't matter that you won your division. We're going to take it away from you anyway. You should just do the record thing. You should just reseed it by record. Option number 5, only reseed the wild cards across conferences. So Barnwell says, under this proposal, the 4 division champs in the AFC and NFC would stay on their respective sides of the bracket, but the 6 wildcard teams would be seeded by reverse order in the standings against the toughest overall competition. So here's this year as an example. That would have meant the Eagles would have hosted the Broncos, the Bills would have landed the Steelers, the Ravens would have faced the Chargers, the Rams would have hosted the Packers, and the Bucs and Commanders would have stayed the same, and the Vikings would have faced the Texans. I mean, that's interesting. I'm okay. I'm good. The 6th option, let teams choose their opponents in the wild card round, meaning that you're the 2 seed and you can pick anybody else. You get first dibs. You get to pick whoever you want. Baseball's been floating this idea. Everybody loves this idea. Everybody loves the drama of a selection committee and making decisions like this, and they love what it could also bring to the table. No. The NFL isn't going to open the door for teams to choose their opponents and remove home games for teams. There's way too many logistical hurdles to overcome here. So out of all of these, I don't like any of them. Enough that they should be wholesale changes to the way we do playoffs. Here's what everybody's problem is. The 2-7 matchup doesn't mean anything. It hasn't meant anything since its inception. The 2 seed probably feels like they should also get a bye. And you also have every single year that 4th division winner. That 4th division winner normally isn't that great of a team. They get in with like 9 or 10 wins. And they're a quick exit against the 5 seed. The 5 seed pulls off the upset or whatever the case may be, right? And so this is what happens when you strive for a league with parity. When you have a salary cap and you strive for parity and you strive for a bunch of teams to be competitive, you're going to have this. This is the way it's going to be. And you've already let the cat out of the bag. You've already expanded to include the 7 seeds, so you can't take it away. So you have 2 choices. You either have to expand even further and make a complete mockery of your regular season, or you have to completely upend the value proposition of winning a division. And if you want to take the division off the table, if you want to say winning the division doesn't give you that advantage, it doesn't give you a home playoff game, okay, we can have that conversation. But I think you deserve something for winning your division. I don't know what it should be, but it should be something. You played everybody else in your division 6 times. You played everybody else in your conference a bunch. You earned something by winning a division. Because if not, then you become the Western Conference, basically. And the Eastern Conference in the NBA, right? You become the NBA where, hey, there are divisions. I'm not going to put you on the spot, Producer Dylan, but could you do the divisions in the NBA? Could you put every team in their proper division in the NBA? No. And I wouldn't hold it against you because it's a Western Conference and an Eastern Conference. They've removed the divisions. If you wanted to do that and have the AFC and the NFC and just seed it, and then also potentially have a play-in game between the 6 and the 7, okay, maybe we start to get on the fringes of something potentially being possible. The 6 plays the 7 for the last spot. So you get 7 teams in, and you get that additional game, but it's a play-in, and then you can give buys. You can structure it in a different way. But I don't really think the playoffs are all that broken. Yeah, there's going to be blowouts. Yeah, there's going to be some lopsided, uncompetitive matchups. Yeah, a team like the Minnesota Vikings are going to get a disadvantage. But guess what? They had every opportunity to not be in that position. And I got to tell you, would everybody have the same type of energy if they won the game? If they won the game and were playing this weekend, would we still be having the same conversations? I don't think so. Coming up on the other side of the break, we close out this edition of the lunch break with the leftovers. We'll do it next here. KDUS AM 1060. How about this? Top of the hour, Jim Rome, 1 to 4 here on KDUS AM 1060. The Jungle You can hop in at the top of the hour, start your drive home with the Jim Rome Show now here on KDUS AM 1060. We wrap up the lunch break the same way we do every single day here on the show. The leftovers. We pile on all of the stories that we didn't get to throughout the course of the show, and we get to them here. We'll start with a couple baseball stories. And I don't know if this has any impact on the Arizona Diamondbacks, although it might. I don't know what the market for this player looks like, and it feels very public at this point what's happening. But the New York Mets and Pete Alonso appear to be nowhere close to a deal, and the Mets signed Jesse Winker to a deal today. It would have been a nice outfielder for the Diamondbacks to maybe swing. A lefty bat could DH, but he goes back to the Mets on a one-year deal, and it appears as though the Mets are pivoting away from Pete Alonso as their first base choice. So I know the Diamondbacks got Josh Naylor, but we've talked about them adding another bat. We've talked about them adding a DH, and if this continues to go on and on and on, and he wants to sign one of those pillow deals like Jordan Montgomery did a year ago, maybe Arizona becomes an attractive place for him. Scott Boras is his client, or is his agent, excuse me. Scott Boras put Jordan Montgomery here. He got Corbin Burns here, so there is already that connection between Scott and the Diamondbacks. So I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but if he's not going back to the Mets and there's nobody else right now interested, as this goes on and on, he might want to sign a pillow deal, and the Diamondbacks might be interested at that point. But it looks like the Mets are going in a different direction. There's Vlad Guerrero Jr. rumors out there. Who knows? But the baseball hot stove still a little warm right now here as we await Roki Sasaki to make his decision here in the next week. Pete Alonso's still out there. Some big names all across the board in free agency still available. So wanted to at least touch on that. And some unfortunate news today as we learned that legendary broadcaster, Mr. Baseball, Bob Uecker, passed away at the age of 90. And this is one of the voices of baseball. For me, when I think of growing up and I think of those broadcasters and those voices of baseball that I remember my dad talking about, his dad talking about, older generation people talking about, Vin Scully and Bob Uecker. Those are the two names that you heard over and over and over again, right? I mean, we live in a generation now with the broadcasters that we have, and you always hear the stories of the broadcasters that came before them. Well, guess what? Bob Uecker, one of those voices that was an institution in baseball. I mean, the man is a character in a movie. I mean, this man, Hollywood career. Now, I'm going to tell a quick story here, because he was in Major League and Major League Two. He was announcer Harry Doyle. I have never seen Major League or Major League Two. I am a huge baseball fan. I've watched a couple baseball movies. There are some people would say they are slam dunk, no doubt, Hall of Fame baseball movies that I have not seen. And Major League and Major League Two are on that list. I just have not seen them. But I know what role Bob Uecker played in those. And he was one of those Mount Rushmore voices of baseball. And so he passed away at the age of 90. He was doing games last season, finished the year with the team, and passed away today at the age of 90. So just very sad news in baseball, as one of the voices of baseball that you can probably remember a famous call by Bob Uecker, and he passed away today at 90. So those are the two baseball stories that we had here today. Switching gears a little, obviously some more positive news. There is listen, I got Suns Wizards tonight that I'll be keeping an eye on, obviously starting at 5 o'clock, but I got to tell you, there's another game that I'll be paying attention to. There's another game that I'll be peeking at the score while I'm on the softball field tonight, because we get the rematch. We've got the Cavs and we've got the Thunder. And I don't know if before the year that you would have said these were the two best teams in the NBA, and that this type of matchup would generate the eyeballs and the conversation that these two have generated. But you've got a 34-5 Cavs team. You've got a 33-6 Thunder team. These are the top two teams in their respective conferences. You've got Oklahoma City looking for their 7th straight home win. And this is immovable force. Or what is it? Unstoppable force meets immovable object, I believe is the phrase. Oklahoma City 17-2 at home. Cleveland 14-3 on the road. So Cleveland have been very good away from home this year. Oklahoma City been excellent at home, 17-2. And you've got, obviously no Chet Holmgren tonight, no Isaiah Hartenstein tonight for the Thunder. That's obviously a big deal. But you've got Donovan Mitchell and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander going at it. You got some superstar. You've got some star power. And you've got the top two teams in the NBA right now on a Thursday, middle of the week, huge contest. I mean, 34-5. The Cavs 6.5 games clear of the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference. Oklahoma City 33-6, 6 games clear of Houston. These are unequivocally, no doubt, the top 2 teams in the NBA right now. These are the top 2 teams in their respective conferences. This is, we had this game a couple of weeks ago. It was awesome. They're both coming in winners of 9 of their last 10. I mean, this is going to be the matchup. And you look at the rest of the slate tonight. Indiana, Detroit, I'm okay. I'm good. Cleveland, Oklahoma City, a battle of 2 30-win teams, a battle of the number 1 seeds in both conferences, a potential NBA Finals preview. Yeah, I'll be paying attention to this tonight. Portland, LA doesn't really do a whole lot for me. Houston, Sacramento doesn't really do a whole lot for me. Cavs, Thunder 2.5-point favorites at home. A battle of the number 1 seeds in both teams, both leagues, both conferences. Yeah, I'm signing up for that. So we'll be keeping an eye on that as well. I feel like the leftovers, we tend to give you a lot of TV streaming news. We tend to give you a lot of just updates on the streaming world and where things are. Well, Live Golf reached a multi-year broadcast agreement with Fox Sports, which will show each of the 3 rounds of events live in the United States on one of the networks and the streaming apps this season. So Live Golf announced today that more than half of their 14 tournaments would air live on Fox or FS1, while select rounds will be on either FS2, Fox Business Network, or the Fox Sports app. And every round will be streamed on the Fox Sports app and Live Golf Plus. I did not know. It was today that I learned that Live Golf had their own app and that it was called Live Golf Plus. Did not know that here today. So we don't know if there's money associated with this deal. We don't know if Live is getting paid, if they're getting a rights fee for this, but they have linked up with Fox Sports. Now, I feel like we can use the leftovers because it is the leftovers. I told you yesterday that Wednesday, there wasn't, the Phoenix Suns were off, no football. Obviously, baseball's not in swing. So this is my chance to catch up on some stuff, to watch some streaming stuff or to watch some TV. Now, I did not pick this. Okay? But it was on, and I found myself kind of intrigued by it. We got through 1 episode, so this is a 1 episode in review for you here on a television show. And it's a documentary. But Netflix, my fiance and I last night watched the first episode of the Jerry Springer documentary. So for those of you who are not, you can't see it on the YouTube stream, and if you're listening on the radio, the moment I said the show out loud, producer Dylan just chuckled. And I didn't hear the chuckle, but I could see the chuckle, and I could hear it in my head. Okay, so no spoilers. Does it get better? Because the first episode was good, but is it worth continuing? Because I'm on the fence about continuing. Perfect. You know what? Then I'm in. I will finish it, guaranteed. I will be finishing. I don't know if it'll be tonight, but I will be finishing that. Because I think I said yesterday, I don't know if I said it off air or on air, but my fiance was watching The Bear, and I was a casual just kind of paying attention while it was, but not really, didn't understand what was going on. Well, she's done with that, so I'm not going to pay attention to that anymore. So this is what we started last night. I did not know it was only 2 episodes. So I'm halfway through. I'll finish it. 50% of the way there, that's no problem. Some wild stories just in the first episode. The one thing that Netflix does really well is shows like that. Those behind-the-scenes documentary style that is something that you obviously, like, I can remember flipping through the channels as a kid and seeing the Jerry Springer show, right? So to now be able to, like, hear all of the nonsense and the drama and just everything associated with it, I will tell you, if you have not seen it, I highly recommend the first episode. And since it's only 2 episodes, you might as well just finish the whole thing. I can't give you an endorsement on the second episode since I haven't seen it yet, but the first episode, yes, I will give it an endorsement. So you watch the whole thing, both episodes. Gets a little worse. Okay, that's what I can look. Well, yes, because it leaves you on a little bit of a cliffhanger on one story that they told on the show, and I don't want to spoil anything for you all if you do watch it, but it ends on a cliffhanger of one of the things they featured on the show. It kind of went south in a hurry, and so they are going to continue that story in episode 2. Episode 1 was kind of setting the stage of how the show got put together, how they got the stories, the ratings, and everything associated with leading up to this point. So it ended on a little bit of a cliffhanger setting up for this second episode. I did not realize it was only a 2-episode thing. So yes, I will absolutely finish it, and you will get a full review here at some point. You know what? That's what we're going to do. We are going to make sure that at some point during the leftovers on a pretty regular basis, I give you some type of movie or TV review, and we'll come up with a scale or something for it, and I will give you the approval or not approval here on that. So this gets an approval on Netflix. And The Bear gets a somewhat approval. As I watched it in passing, didn't understand what was going on, but it is shot really well. It is really cool the way they present some of the episodes. And so that's all I'll say about that without spoiling it. So there you go. The Vince McMahon one. Yes, Mr. McMahon. I did watch all of that. Now, the interesting thing for that one for me, and I would also give that one a high approval rating, is I am a wrestling fan. And so a lot of what they told in the documentary is stuff that as a diehard wrestling fan who goes to a bunch of shows, I knew a lot of it. It was interesting to see how it was presented and to hear from other people, but not a whole lot of it was anything like groundbreaking for me, but I still enjoyed it. So if you didn't know any of that stuff, you would be really intrigued by it. All right, that's going to do it for us here. Thursday edition of the show. Jim Rome is up next. Producer Dylan, thank you for all that you do. Everybody, make it a great rest of your Thursday. We will talk to you tomorrow. See ya.